all new. AM 1150 WTMP.com.
There it is. It's that time again for Porch Talk Radio on WTMP.
Live.
This is as live as you get this weekend because this is not the voice. What's the Star Wars joke? This is not the droid you are looking for. This is not the voice you are used to. I'm Tim Horton, the executive producer all these years for Porch Talk Radio. The voice you rarely hear, the face you never see. Eddie is at a family funeral this weekend, as is Willie Lawson, unrelated, but he's out of the state. And
different family.
A little hard to commute in for the hour today. So they're going to play hooky. Gabriel Phillips, Eddie's co-host, is here.
Live.
And we're going to muddle on and have a little bit of fun. It'll be a little bit different today, but I think you'll like the show. Mostly it'll be the same stuff. So this is Porch Talk Radio on WTMP, AM 1150 and 97.5 FM in Tampa Bay. And we're going to start off real quick with a summary of what we're going to do. We're going to talk to Candy Lowe, I hope, here in just a few minutes on the phone. She's calling in from South Georgia. And there she is. And then we're going to talk a little bit about internet security because I had a friend of mine hacked this week. So I'm going to...
And you understand how exciting that is to all of us.
Write everybody a note about how they should change their passwords. We're going to talk about some stuff Gabe wants to talk about. We have a great interview with my friend Margaret DeBellotte that's going to be here in a few minutes. And we have to do everybody's favorite segment.
Come on now.
This Day in History.
Oh, boy. That's great.
We make fun of Eddie doing it, but we're going to cover that too. So without further ado, we'll move on real quick because I want to efficiently use her time. Candy Lowe is on the phone. Candy Lowe of Tea Time, and now famously with the Black Business Bus Tour Tampa.
Awesome.
But it's not Black Business Bus Tour Tampa today, Candy. It's what, Columbus, Georgia?
Yes, I am in Columbus, Georgia. Thank you so much, Porch Talk Radio. And I have to say this, Tim, Willie, and definitely Eddie Adams for supporting my vision way before the bus tour. Tea and Conversation, the tea shop over at Harbor Club back in the day. You guys have just always been so supportive, helpful, guiding, mentoring. I can't tell you how many times you and I, the three of you all, have always sat down and encouraged and motivated me and just been such a great resource. I really appreciate coming on this morning.
You mean the Black Business Bus Tour wasn't instantly famous? It wasn't an overnight success?
Absolutely not. I mean, it has been years of consistent hard work. Tim, you remember tea time over in Seminole Heights, Willie Lawson over at the Harbor Club, Eddie Adams over at the Harbor Club as well, started from the bus tour, from Tea and Conversation, just trying to figure out how we're going to get more businesses over at the Harbor Club, and it just continued to birth from that, and Tea and Conversation, and I mean, it's just been a long road, and just staying consistent is what I have seen, that anything that you do, you just keep the foot to the pedal, it will definitely be successful, and I'm just excited about what we're doing. We were in Philadelphia at the beginning of the year. We actually have a date coming up to be in Mississippi, supporting some businesses in that area. And the ultimate goal, guys, is to have a full Black Business Bus Tour in each and every city to state throughout our country.
That's a big mandate. That's a big mandate, but we think we can get you there. While we're right at this point, it's BlackBusinessBusTourTampa.com.
BlackBusinessBusTour
Oh, Florida.com. Okay. And so the schedule and stuff is on there. Tell us real quick about what you're doing in Columbus, Georgia today, and then when's the next Tampa tour?
Yes, thank you so much for that question. I definitely want to let the family back home know what we're doing, and the team there has been consistently keeping up with me. Every few hours has been contacting me, texting me, messaging me on what we're doing so that I can forward pictures to them to put on Facebook. I have to give a big shout-out to Impact Magazine, Miss Dee Wilkins, that has been making sure that everyone in our city and across the state of Florida and across the country know what we are doing in our city. On yesterday, I visited 4 businesses in Columbus, Georgia, that are African-American owned. We were able to get some taping of 2 of them, and I'm hoping that that last one, we will have some footage on that one as well. I have a beauty supply store that I will be visiting here today. I think it's Larry's Beauty Supply Store. We did not make it there on time on yesterday, so that is on our list. There's a African-American, very, very well-known stylist here in the city. We will be visiting his shop as well, and there is I cannot remember, there's a really, really great museum here, the Ancestors' Footprints. I am scheduled to go there as well on today and talk about the Black Business Bus Tour and how we all know in our city, Tampa Bay may be leading the whole country in supporting African-American small businesses.
Wow. Now, Candy, real quick, is this a government-funded thing you're doing or no?
Absolutely not. It is never have been government-funded. At the beginning, of course,
It was Candy Lowe funded.
Yes. And that has been, and everyone that knows me know that it has been from day one, financially from day one. When we first started out, of course, I have to always say James Rivard GMC Pontiac in Brandon was our big sponsor. That dealership, and Kenny Russian for many months made sure that our buses was rolling on a consistent basis. And then after that, we, of course, we started getting other people that wanted to come on board to help us out with the Black Business Bus Tour. But it has never been government-funded, no grant monies, grassroots effort. And a couple of years ago is the first time that we ever started charging to actually ride on the buses. So we've gone from $5 to $10 to ride on the bus and going out and patronizing our small African-American businesses in our city. I have to also say a big shout-out for the last 6 buses that have rolled out. Michael Isaac has made sure that our buses has been rolling consistently, as well as Dominique Ferreira over with the Dom. He makes sure that we roll as well. And Business Plan Plus with Rodney Jones. So it's been a long time coming, even for getting people to see the vision of African American businesses. We all know, and I've been a small business owner since 2003, that the efforts there to keep a business open, if you have a brick and mortar, sometimes become very challenging because of so many reasons, and we all know the first one is having capital for the businesses. That's why I'm always encouraged that one day that when those big events come to our city, we will be able to be involved in those endeavors. I do know that when that money comes, if we're able to get some of that over the weekend and be able to make $50,000 to $75,000 over a weekend period, then we have some money to play with, and we are able to go to the bank and say, hey, I would like a loan, a bigger loan, to continue to grow my business. That is my ultimate goal for our businesses in our city.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I drive Eddie, and he's really aware of it too. But we talk about the WWE event, SmackDown, whatever thing that's coming this year. The Super Bowl is coming in 21. Those major macroeconomic occurrences in Tampa Bay dump a ton of money into the economy. But you can't wake up on Tuesday and say, "Hey, there's a Super Bowl in Tampa this weekend. I wonder if I can do some business or figure out a way to make money off of that." So you have to plan in advance. And so if you have an idea for a way that you could tie into the Super Bowl, a lot of the big projects are already contracted and done. Yes, even this far out.
Wow.
Even this far out.
But there's a lot of opportunities that are available. And if you have an idea, call Eddie Adams Jr. He's playing hooky today, family funeral, but so we're not going to give his phone number out. If you know his number, please don't call it today. It's not funny today to call during the show because the phone's not here. But we make that joke every week about calling Eddie during the show. This week is probably not the week to call.
Yes.
But call Eddie or send him an email to eddie@porchtalkradio.com. The website's porchtalkradio.com. And express the interest. Tell him what your idea is, and we'll get back to you and hook you up and network you in with, the people that can help you depending on what your product or service is. There are a lot of opportunities with Super Bowl.
So, Candy, real quick, as you're out there, and it sounds like your efforts are paying off very good, actually, very well, and you're sharing the good news, per se, of being independent, being a business person, and being a person of color. I believe I'm hearing you that you are proving doesn't mean you're going to be dependent on the government or do like a lot of minorities do when they have an idea to run something. If they say, well, I'll just go get some government money. Isn't there usually control involved if that's the case, if you end up with government money trying to do a project?
Well, that's what I always have heard, that once you start getting government funding, then you have to be regulated by them. You have to have a board that helps to guide and and tell you how and do and be, and that's what I've always heard. I have never been funded by anyone. That's why if I want a black bus, the bus is going to be black. That's why if I want to go to black-owned businesses with the Black Business Bus Tour, I don't have to change up and start going to other ethnic
Right.
in our city with the Black Business Bus Tour.
You're just too nice to say that anybody who doesn't know Candy Lowe, first of all, you need to know Candy Lowe, but anybody who knows Candy Lowe knows nobody's telling Candy how to do her business, if you know what I'm saying. She's going to do it her way, and it'll get done right. So that's good.
Thank you so much for that, Tim. I really
So
appreciate
what's the date of the next Tampa event, real quick?
Our next Black Business Bus Tour in Tampa is scheduled for September. That is our reunion Black Business Bus Tour, and it is the third Saturday of September, and then we're moving on into December, which will be the holiday Black Business Bus Tour. And in between now and December, we are trying to touch bases again with St. Pete, that has expressed interest of doing a Black Business Bus Tour in their area with Dr. Cynthia Johnson, and I have been communicating back and forth for quite some time. So I'm hoping that we're able to get that moving real soon, and also doing a Clearwater Black Business Bus Tour again, which was very successful. We had 2 buses to roll out in Clearwater and visited some unbelievable businesses in that area, and the lead-up person for that was Black Boss, and that was Melanie Washington. And then, of course, I have to say we did go to, in March, we did travel over to Daytona with Mr. Real Black, R-E-L-L Black. He hosted us over there and had 6 small businesses that we toured in that area, and I think we had about 25, 30 people that traveled, had everything scheduled out for us. We were able to also visit some of the two soul food restaurants in that area as well. That was very well known. So that was very, very nice. And, of course, then we came back to Orlando, and we were able to go to the African Kingdom Museum that is in Orlando, which, if you have not gone there, it is unbelievable. And then we went to one of the soul food restaurants. That actually was a Jamaican restaurant there in the Orlando area. I've been reaching out to Orlando, and hopefully I'll get the right person to get something rolling in the Orlando area as well. And again, if anyone is interested in moving forward in their city or in their state in reference to the Black Business Bus Tour, you can contact me at 813-394-6363. Of course, the website is very, very active. It's very high on the Google page, and I'm excited about that. I never thought, being on Google and being up high on the list was very important, but I've learned that those things are very important as well, and that's BlackBusinessBusTourFlorida.com.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you called. I knew we'd have a little window of time here with Eddie missing the show, and I wanted to make sure that we gave you some time to call in, even though you were out of town. And I'll see you Tuesday or Wednesday whenever you're back in town. We'll have our own little powwow. So I'm glad you called. Thanks, and have big fun.
Thank you so much.
Take care, Candy.
Goodbye, guys. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. So you're listening to Porch Talk Radio on WTMP, Tampa Bay, 1150 AM, 97.5 FM. No, this is not Eddie Adams Jr. I'm Tim Horton, the executive producer of the radio show, the voice you never hear and the face you never see, even on the old days with the TV. Eddie's family.
All three or four of us, the faces we have, we're perfect for radio.
Exactly. Well, we got a real MIA this weekend, which is why you hear my voice. Eddie's family funeral. Willie's out of state, or traveling almost out of state. So Gabriel and I are here to hold the fort down. We have to thank our sponsors.
Absolutely.
And we'll start with John Despro at PrintFast. Any of your printing needs, whether it's business cards, political campaign yard signs. Yes, there are already people thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm going to run, and where do I get political yard signs today? And we're not even close to 2020 yet. But brochures, flyers, banners across the front of your business, if it's printed on substrate or paper, call John Despro at printfast.com. He's great, and he's got good guys' cars out there. Willie and I both bought cars from him.
And they're still running. Hallelujah.
Exactly. And Todd Jones has been with the Porch Talk Radio show since day one, forever. He is a property appraiser, a professional property appraiser. If you don't know that business or you're not in the real estate world, you may know Todd Jones's name because he ran for the politically elected office of property appraiser and didn't win. But that is what his industry, his trade is, and he's one of the most credentialed property appraisers in the country, and Florida's really lucky to have him here, and he's on some boards. And the Hillsborough County Republican Executive Committee helped encourage the beginning days of Porch Talk Radio, which is creeping up on how many years ago? 11?
11. Is that
something
that
like
long?
Something? Yeah.
You should not be so gray-haired back then, right?
I know.
Holy mackerel!
We're going to pretend that you
must
didn't
be the lighting.
That. It's the lighting.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right. Which is why we're on the radio
instead of. Kind of like the humidity out here keeps making our clothes tighter and tighter. It's just the humidity out here, right?
On TV anymore. We're not on TV anymore. They took a vote and said no. You need to move on from the TV show. Go back to radio where you belong.
Exactly.
So
and here we are.
We appreciate all of our sponsors, and as I said, Eddie will be back next week. Willie will be back next week, and I guess you and I will be back next week.
Absolutely, until further notice, unless God comes early and we see that horse from the east with someone wearing robes of purple, as the scriptures go.
Yeah, we don't want to do the apocalyptic thing. So
we're good on that. We get a pass.
Oh, you and I.
That part.
You got.
We're not part of the what's that? The Christian thing out of Clearwater? What's that religion out there?
No, let's not even.
Whatever that religion is out there, we're not part of that group. but there is another thing going on for us, so we got to pass. We're good.
All right, good. Well, you're listening to Porch Talk Radio on WTMP. And if you need a pass, check with Gabriel.
Absolutely. We'll pray for you.
At porchtalkradio.com. Okay, and then I have a personal rant. Many of you don't know, but I'm an engineering tech nerd and a venture capitalist and startup specialist and stuff. But I'm very digitally aware and very much
aware.
A .com nerd. So I have got to tell you that this past week, I'll just pass a quick story on. This past week, I have a very good friend who knows better than to allow this to happen,
but
lost access to his email address because somebody hacked his password. Now, he swears to me that his password was not the word password 1234556, which, believe it or not, is the most common password.
Are we not supposed to be, wait a minute, are we not supposed to be using that one?
Don't use password 123456. This is not a good password. But he lost access to his email address, which cascaded into losing access to his Facebook account, his LinkedIn account, yes, his bank account, his mortgage bank account, and all the other stuff that we all use our emails for. There's a long story, but I'm not going to tell it. Just remember to change your password. You see this advice on all the time. It's always suggested, but just do it. You brush your teeth every day. You put on clean underwear every day. You brush your hair every day. You take a bath on Saturday night because church is Sunday morning. Country folk take a bath once a week. I thought we were talking about digital
stuff. I just heard underwear.
Well, so just add that to the list. Change your password. You don't have to do it every week, but every 3 or 4 months, every 6 months, like you change the battery in your smoke detector in your home with the time change, right? Spring forward, fall back. Change your silly passwords, and if you can't remember the last time you changed your password, change your password and do it today. So there you go.
There you go.
We'll move.
Change your password.
That's right. So
follow the link that you get from some mysterious email.
Yes.
That says update your password here, and that'll, like what Eric Holder did on his computer, and he got hacked. And then the next thing we know, Hillary is destroying phones and 3,000 emails disappeared.
Right.
It's just a mystery.
Well, and John Podesta got hacked, which is how they got into the famous servers.
And he was sent an email, and he was sent an email that said, "Hey, update your password. Come here and go."
Right.
And he did it.
That's
and
right.
He's so smart. He's just very intelligent.
So without being real political today, that's how Hillary's servers allegedly.
Also, with that software program that destroys everything, Bit wasn't it?
Yeah, well, that's the wipe the drives.
And the hammers that she was done on the 9 phones. It was just a mistake. She slipped every time. But
exactly. So we're at about halfway through the hour. This is Tim Horton, the
Are we having that much fun? Holy
We
mackerel.
are. We're moving along.
Wow.
Eddie's not here. We're moving along.
That's true. Mr. Eye Candy always has a very good vocabulary to throw on us.
I'm Tim Horton, the executive producer of the Porch Talk Radio Show, filling in for Eddie Adams, who is at a family funeral this weekend. Willie's playing hooky with stuff, so Gabriel and I are here driving the bus.
Exactly.
Not Candy Lowe's BlackBusinessBusTour. I don't think she'd let us drive the bus, but we're driving the show bus. And so my friend Margaret DeBellotte decided to come by and visit today. And she's interesting and fun to talk to because...
And she has a wonderful smile.
Margaret is Miss D, the job coach. That's her business slogan branding. And this week, she was talking to some folks about a program called Boots in Transition, which is converting guys coming out of the service with an MOS into jobs and careers that transition. And by the way, because it's the holiday weekend, thank you for your service. Between Willie and I and Eddie, you're the token service guy on the team.
And I did my time in the Air Force, and I was glad to do it. Glad to get out. Happy to get out. But folks, as we kind of go through this season, we have the hot dogs and everything else we're going to be doing for this next few days. It's in hot dogs. Leave it alone. So, but anyways, we kind of celebrate the whole thing. Understand there's just a bigger picture. We have freedoms we enjoy in this nation, and we have people dying to come here, literally. And there's a reason why. Nothing is perfect, But if you just shut your TV off and just go talk to your neighbor and discover, it's really not so bad after all. Just cut the TV off and don't forget to go to church. Go ahead.
You're one of the very few Air Force guys I know. There's probably 6 or 7 of them. But you're the only one of the Air Force guys I know that actually was in the air.
That's true. I was flying with the AWACS plane.
Right.
I was the IT guy on board that plane, and you're always reminded for the many countless hours that we did on that, repairing that darn thing. It's always the lowest bidder gets a contract. But you know what? Again, to have people always ask, "Oh, you're the Air Force. What plane did you fly?" Well, I didn't really fly. I was the passenger. Oh, I thought you were all Air Force flew. Well, we were in planes, but we didn't fly. No.
Yeah,
So,
well,
sorry about that, folks.
but you're the only Air Force guy I know that was actually in the air. I know
a lot of administrative are probably.
I know 2 guys that cooked a lot of meals.
Yes.
I know a guy who put a lot of fuel in planes.
And there's a lot of them that are security.
Yeah.
Security patrol.
So I know a guy that played in the band.
Oh,
there
my
you
goodness.
go. Yeah.
How about
Because the Air
that?
Force has got to have a band. There you go.
And you know the famous name for that, the Beat and Blow Corps. But anyway, go ahead.
So anyway,
I'm glad I didn't know that
just
before now.
as an aside, while we thank the Vet Corps for their service, since you're sitting here, I did want to mention that you're, of the 3 of the rest of us
Well,
on the Porch Talk Radio show, you're the only one that actually serves. So thanks for your service, and thanks for
Thank you, and God bless America.
keeping a digital ear on the evildoers
There
so
you
we
go.
could smack them down. So Margaret's here, and that was an aside.
No, I
We
very
went
much
we
enjoyed
went a
the
long way
aside.
around the block on that one, didn't we?
No, I very much enjoyed the aside because I do work with military people in transition from every branch. That is one of the specialties that I have, which is why I was on with Boots in Transition. We did a very nice podcast, and talking to military folks about how to be civilians is a very robust conversation because there is a huge amount of respect for the job that you had, but we have no idea what the heck you did, what your life was like. I often liken it to a subculture within our culture, and I encourage folks who have been in the military to get friends outside of the military so that they can begin to integrate
Transition.
themselves. Yeah, actually transition.
And it's kind of a different mindset because in the military, birds of a feather flock together, obviously.
Of course.
But it's just kind of, you're all sharing in the same agony of the job or whatever. But then when you get to speak to the civilians outside, it's foreign to them. Like, well, no, I got the regular 8 to 5. I got to hustle through traffic. And then I've got a boss who has a boss. And it just kind of gets all like, wow, that's weird. I just go to my supervisor, my commanding supervisor, and he handles it. And my life moves on.
Well, the civilian world is chaos to a military
Big time.
person,
Right, big
and I
time.
respect that. I'm actually a Navy mom. A lot of people don't know
Awesome.
that.
God bless you.
And thank you. And my son was not well suited for the Navy. I don't know why he went. Oh, there was a girl involved. That's right.
How long
That's
was
why
he
he
in?
went. 4. He was
Okay,
there
well,
4.
that's pretty good then. Come
Long
on now.
enough
Well-
to
He
get
must
rid
have
of
been
the
really
girl?
nice.
Is that what that was? Long enough
No,
to get
no,
rid of the
he went and the girl didn't go. That was-
Oh, well, there you go.
Oh, well.
Sounds like there's a long story and
there's a
and
great
scheme
story there. I love it. Anywho,
But the MOS issue is important. Like I made the joke about the
MOS, please explain MOS.
It's what's your job? What's your job distance?
Listen, not
the
everybody has-
non-military guy knows what an MOS is, and you don't.
no,
It's
he
the-
was
it's
he
the
was
code for your
clarifying
job.
it for the people listening.
Yeah.
Jim.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're okay.
Hello.
Oh,
You're not the
no,
only one
I-
in
It's not
this
just us.
conversation.
all of a sudden,
Thank you. This
all
mic
of a
is here
sudden,
for a
I was
reason. Thank
gonna
you.
I was going to.
Anyway, so what's the
go
answer?
Willie Lawson on you real quick.
You go ahead, Brian. I know your car. Go ahead,
Oh,
man.
my
But
God.
you explain to us. Somebody explain.
But I made the joke about the other guys I know in the Air Force. 2 of them were cooks.
Mm-hmm.
That job translates to one degree or another. But your job does translate to civilian, to contractors,
IT, yeah.
to a lot of places, to IT. But it isn't like you drive down the road and, oh, there's the company that does it. You have to, there's that transitional
Right.
work that has to be done.
Right.
Break it down into these component pieces.
Mm-hmm.
These are the 6 things I'm an expert at. Who needs those skills? You're not going to look for an Airwax airplane at TIA and looking for a job. That's not how it works.
And that's part of what I do when I'm working with a transitioning veteran is help them to look at the tasks of their job and how they align with civilian jobs. You start talking about logistics. Well, logistics in the military is just a little bit different than civilian logistics, but there are some tasks in the MOS or job description, basically.
Job description. Thank you.
That will, and Tim, you brought up an excellent point, and I remind people that unlike maybe 20 or 30 years ago, where there were a lot of servicemen that were in business, today there really are not. A lot of the managers and supervisors and hiring managers don't have a military background, so it's a hard turn for them as well. It's a hard turn for them to bring in someone who was in the military, who has a high level of expectation of things having processes that are in place that people actually follow.
Well, right. It's a whole cultural thing. I mean, we're not going to give it away, but the three of us sitting around this table are of a certain age. Our parents.
Excuse me? Are you insinuating something?
And our
the one with the most gray hair
grandparents.
is calling us out.
He's just taller, that's all.
Thank you.
Everybody served.
Right.
In that era, everybody served.
Right.
Sure.
In the era of our time, not everybody served, because we were in that transition between, everybody serves and something we're going to pretend is, volunteer military service. And then today, where, they really have a hard time recruiting and finding those who not only are willing to serve, but actually are qualified and can pass the requirements.
Right. Well, because it's not
I
everybody
had a
gets
recruiter tell me one time their biggest problem now is not grades, although that's a challenge. It's not gender, although that's gone away. It's not even really drugs, although that's a problem. The biggest challenge in the recruiting corps now is, big, fat, lazy. You know what? They sit on their butt on the couch and play video games all the time. They're out of shape and can't pass a boot.
Yeah, they can't pass the physical aspect of it. And
diabetes and all that stuff.
Right.
And that's at a young age that lasts on.
Yeah.
Well, we have an obesity problem in this country. We also have and I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the over prescribing of psychotropic medications to very young children. And that's a whole nother thing, But the population of eligible, new service people is shrinking, and it's shrinking for a lot of reasons. The chronic incarceration problem that we have in this country, everything's a felony kind of thing in some places. I mean, there are a lot of things that are working against that. So as a job coach, when I'm talking to somebody about their opportunity to become either employed, re-employed, or advancing their career, I look at three main areas. I look at who is in their network that might be able to help them get a job, because the best referral for a hiring manager is a referral of somebody that they know. People are going to choose somebody that they were referred to them by somebody they know over a cold call applicant, if you will, and then teaching people how to go through this new application process, which is not always fun, is what I'm going to say.
Well, and especially if you're doing it online, and I've been there a few times, when you're trying to do something online and the programs are designed to have certain catches they're looking for, phrases.
Right.
Keywords. They're looking for keywords.
Like spiders they send out or something like that.
Yeah, it's just like a Google search.
Yeah.
If you want to find, somebody that's selling pick it 2016, Cadillac, whatever the model is you want, the spiders go out and find it. Well, with Monster.com and Indeed and all these job sites now, it's a real challenge, because that is a job in and of itself, is knowing how to play that game.
Right.
I talk to some mentor programs for some young kids, and I tell them I have a lot of education. We'll skip that story, but I'm unemployable. You put my resume into Monster.com, and there is nobody that's going to find me and nobody that's going to interview me. I've been on the board of directors of major big companies. I've started my own. I've worked for others. I do venture capital. I have a huge, diverse career background.
Which is totally useless
Which is all totally useless to somebody who's...
How can they translate that into a usable skill today that they can put into a job description? I work in corporate America.
Right.
And in that corporate job, that I'm giving a list of what they'd like me to be able to accomplish. Today, I'm doing maybe a fourth of that because now it's gone off sideways into many other venues and areas that are not part of the initial job description. But once you get into any corporation, it's finding out what are you capable of doing? Can we stretch you this way? Can we stretch you that way? Right. And if you can pick up Excel, God bless you, then then you can do a billion things that have nothing to do with your job description.
Well, and so that's the point is you have you have
skills.
And I'm going to throw some shade here, but you have a 31-year-old HR person who didn't serve in the service, who is relying on, let's call the software to
find prospects.
I want to have a left-handed guy who, speaks French and, balances balls with his left hand or whatever the job skill is, and they type that into Monster without
and it'll pop up.
The width of perspective, and that's my point when I talk to the kids is nobody would ever interview me. You have to finish the degree or the trade school or the tech school or the Microsoft training programs. There's lots of certificate trade school programs, but you have to finish those programs because that's what they're going to see inside Monster, inside Indeed, and that's where the military guys have a real challenge is converting that because it's playing this whole separate game that has nothing to do with whether you're productive.
Well, real quick,
wait a minute, but Tim, it's a multi-tiered problem. Okay. Yeah. One of the things that I explain to people, because I am an HR professional and I have gone through the process of hiring people, I've gone through all of that lunacy that poor people have to go through in order to get there. When I worked in corporate America, I sat behind the desk thinking, if I could only tell you everything that I know so that you could stop hosing up this process. And so that's why I'm a job coach today. That's why I went to the other side of the table. I don't work for companies. I don't do placements for companies. And I help my clients to walk through the process of getting into these companies and then walk them through the first 90 days of going to work for some of these yahoos that really have no idea what they want them to do when they hire them. They hire them into a role and actually want them to produce a whole bunch of other stuff, like you said. And once they find out that you're smart, oh my goodness, now they're going to make you do their job, and helping people through this process of being employed with companies that want to hire a jack of many trades but pay you for one.
Now, with that said, Tim said that because of all of his wonderful life experiences, basically, that he's done so much. I've been around the block a few times, just behind you, I think, on some of this stuff. And I remember several years ago, I was kind of in between jobs. We say transition. And, I was unemployed. So anyway, I was needing to do something quick. I was getting kind of hungry. So I said, you know what, I'll go to Walmart. They're always hiring. So I filled out the resume thing. And a couple of days went by, no calls. A few more days went by. I finally just called Walmart, and the lady who answered the phone, ma'am, I filled out online the application. I want to get a job there. Well, she said, well, sir, we'll call you back. Well, it's been a few days now. Well, sir, you see, we have standards. You know what? I almost went off on that lady. I've seen some of the people working there. I know the picture's been in the post office. And you tell them, I just had to hang up. I had to hang up.
It took me 6 months to get hired at a grocery store one time.
So I went back. I reapplied online. I got rid of 75% of what all I knew I could do. And I had actually worked at FedEx loading trucks several years back. I put that on there, and I got hired within 24 hours.
That's right.
Well,
you got to know what they want to hear.
Algorithm note.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Hard worker.
Which is why I tell people, listen, after you put in the application, then you've got to get your little self up and go to the place of employment, if at all possible.
And that is the power, because I went the day I put that, I dumbed down my resume. I went back in there that night because I found out who the night shift person was, manager.
There you go.
I got in front of her face, said, hi, I'm so-and-so. I put in an application. Well, sir, we have a process. You have to go through this. Okay, fine. It's in there. Can you go check, see, make sure it got in there? She went and checked. Oh, yes, sir, we did fine. I'll get so-and-so and we'll talk. Within 24 hours, I was hired.
Right. And that's the part that people don't know to do. That's why they need a job coach.
gotta get
That's why
aggressive.
I Miss D, the job coach.
The social connections and whatnot.
Right.
But you know the key words.
Let's stop right at that point real quick. This is Porch Talk Radio on WTMP. Eddie Adams is at a family funeral event today. Willie Lawson's on the road. So this is Tim Horton, the executive producer of the show, the voice you never hear, with Gabriel Phillips, and we're talking to Margaret DeBellotte. And so
Actually,
give us a minute.
Torres here.
That's my legal name. That's my government name.
That's a government name.
Okay.
I've known Margaret for a while. Give everybody your contact information too, because we're talking about jobs, and you do help folks do that. So while we're in the middle of this,
Please do it. You got a wonderful smile. She has a great smile, folks.
I actually have a face for radio. Thank you very much.
There you go. Well, compared to us, no, dear. You should be on TV. You get away with it.
Well, yes, you can contact me. You can find me on all social media at MSD Job Coach. You can go to my website, www.msd-thejobcoach.com. And I do this. I know a lot of people go, huh? When I do this part, I say, listen, call me on a daggone telephone, 704.
Oh, my God, that's weird.
277-8714. Yeah, I actually want business. So if all you got is to call me on the phone, man, doggone call me.
So grab a pencil, because we give phone numbers out around here besides Eddie's. So your phone number again is?
704-277-8714. Yeah, I lived in the Carolinas for a while. I've had the same number for 20 years. I'm not changing it. Doesn't matter where I live.
It's free to call anywhere. Get over it, folks.
People say that. People say that all the time. But you can find me on all social media as at MSD Job Coach. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, blah, 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 blah.
It looks like Miss D.
Miss D.
She says
It looks like it right here. MS.D.
Yeah. Margaret says
MSD.
MSD, but think of it as Miss D. I'm going to call Miss D.
That's right.
That's what
I'll tell
it
you
looks
how I got that name. I did not name myself that. When I worked in the Pinellas County Jail, because I also specialize in working with the formerly incarcerated. So the formerly incarcerated have re-entry problems just like the military folks do.
I think that'd be huge.
Yeah, it's
Larger.
fun. It's fun. It's fun. And, the thing about it is my clients couldn't say DeBellotte Torres. So they just started calling me Miss D.
There you go.
And so when I went to put the brand together, I said, well, I'm Miss D and I'm a job coach. Real simple. Boom.
Works for me.
Didn't have to remember that whole DeBellotte Torres thing, It's all
or how to
fancy.
Hyphen. Actually, it says hyphen. Yes.
It is hyphenated.
With
It
or
is
without the
hyphenated.
hyphen.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Where do I put it? I don't
Is that
care.
the lazy one that lays down, or is that the one that's in the middle of the word? The hyphen thing?
Right? Is it an apostrophe? Is it a hyphen?
Underscore?
Come on, right? All this grammar stuff. So MSD Job Coach. That's real simple. But I have 4 simple steps when I work with a candidate, whoever they are, because I don't just specialize in the hard to place candidate. I work with anybody who's in transition. In fact, I got a young lady who had just graduated from college with a really sophisticated degree in some sort of biotech something. I have no idea, but the young lady has. She said a lot of really big words, and I said, that's great. I need you to build your network. I need you to apply for the jobs. I'll help you with the interview, and we'll do the follow-up. That's the 4 steps: network, apply, interview, follow-up. That's it. Real simple. Most people can remember that. And if they can't remember all 4, they can remember 3 of them. You got to use your network to build the leads. Then you've got to put in the application. I'll show you how to do that using the keywords. And eventually, the law of large numbers dictates you're going to get some interviews. But the follow-up, teaching people how to effectively follow up on the leads that they get, the applications they put in, the interview that they've gone on, is what my skill is. I'm a job coach, and I don't write resumes.
Which is exactly what you did. That's what your story was. You did your application the second time correctly, but you went to the stupid Walmart in the night shift guy. You knew who to go see.
And I talked to that person directly.
You talked to the person directly.
I'm ready to go now.
Right.
Well, sure, we have a process. Great. What is it? When can we start it? Well, sure, we have the drug testing, blah. Great. You want to schedule that now? Well, no, sir. Give me some time, all right?
But I teach people how to have that conversation and how to have it effectively. I teach people to go in. Well, first you make the phone call and find out who the hiring manager is. So when you go in, you know who you're asking for.
Boom.
And then when you go in and ask for that person, if you ask for them by name, nobody's going to question you, or very rarely do they question you, right? And so they direct you to the person, and before the person knows it, before a gatekeeper gets a chance to push you away, the person that is going to hire you is going to be in front of you. And they, if you know what you're talking about, you just simply say, listen, I applied for this job. I've already done the online application. I'm ready to go. Tell me what else you need me to do. What are the next steps in the process?
Because you got hired that quick, not because you were the greatest Walmart employee ever, contrary to your opinion.
No, not at all. No, I knew that.
You got hired because you made somebody else's job easy.
Right.
They needed to fill a job, and here's this guy, Gabriel, who came by and bugged me, but he's got the skills to fill that job. I can get that job filled and move on without having to think about it.
But not only does he have the skills, he has the persistence. And I want somebody who wants to work. I got... on average, for each opening, there's anywhere from 100 to 350 applicants. Mm-hmm. And so I, as the hiring manager, have to go through that whole list. Hopefully I find decent 10 to interview. I don't know which ones are really lazy butts, because when they show up for the interview, the reality is they've got their recruiting face on. They're recruiting me and I'm recruiting them. We're all going through this song and dance process.
Like those two crabs that always do that circle. They get the big claw and they kind of tap each other on the shell.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Who's going to break you? Who's going to give in?
That's right.
Exactly.
Trying to see who's going to get broken down first. We go through this crazy dance, and then I hope that you actually show up the first day.
You know what? That's amazing. I work in a PEO, which is like a mega staffing agency, and we oversee 90,000 employees around the country. And the amount of job applicants that apply, and then they get hired and they don't show up for day one, or they show up on day one asking for a check. Well, no, that's not the way it works. You need to work at least 8 hours a day for at least, 40, and they get upset. And you're like, maybe there's a misunderstanding here somewhere, but this is a job.
A job is very different than being a contractor. See, and I have to teach people the difference, and even depending upon your contractual agreement, I work as an independent contractor, and I have a requirement that there's a little bit of pay to get started, so I know that you're really going to pay me, and then I do a little work and so on and so forth. But traditional jobs don't work that way. I mean, let's think about that deal. I show up for 40 hours and maybe you'll pay me at the end of the week. I'm not quite sure about that deal. But anyway, I digress. That's a whole entrepreneurial conversation,
Absolutely.
right?
I got it. I've been there.
So, but the reality is I discovered when I was a hiring manager how deficient people are in understanding how to work. Let me let that settle for a minute, right? People don't understand what the process of going to work is like. Now, I've raised 2 children. I think they're fairly functional. They don't live on my couch, so yeah, they're functional.
You did good.
And the idea is that people say, well, school's got to teach them that. Well, no, that's not really what school signed up to do. Some of these life skill things, they got to get it somewhere else.
School's lucky they can get 2 and 2, 4, and what's the name of the president, and who was George Washington in history, right?
Right. They're lucky to get them to regurgitate the facts.
Items on their list of stuff we're supposed to get done.
Yeah.
And Jeff Akins doesn't need any more duties or chores for his teacher staff to do. We got plenty.
But the problem is that everybody is playing hot potato with this. Who's supposed to teach people how to get jobs? I used to I was a career counselor for a college, and these people had higher degrees. Some of them higher than me. And these jokers didn't know how to attach their resume to an email. And I said, something's really wrong with this process on a whole bunch of fronts. And so after that, I decided, listen, I'm just going to come out here and teach where I can. So I'll do workshops. If you have an organization and a group of people you want me to talk to, we can talk about a contract for me to come in and do workshops and teach people how to go through this process of any age. I love working with young people. I love teaching them, even in middle school. Teach them how to build their resume by doing extracurricular activities. It's not enough for you to show up for school. If you want to show people that you know how to do things and build your network of people who are going to help you get jobs, go out into the community and do community service. Join different clubs and things like that. I teach at every level.
Well, Margaret's heard this story before. I told a group of young folks, I'm in the tech world, I told a group of young folks that I sound like a dinosaur.
You are.
Pretty much, you are.
But I said, it's not that hard to be a rock star, right? It's sad, but it isn't that hard to be a rock star. If you show up with clothes on and appropriate shoes and brought some money for lunch and showed up on time and did whatever stupidity they told you to do between today and lunch,
Right.
just do that thing
Yeah.
with a smile on your face and say, I'll see you back after lunch. Goodbye, boss.
And then come back.
And then come back.
You're the best employee that guy's got.
Yeah.
It's not that hard to be a rock star. And then the flip side, Margaret's heard this story too, but we'll leave a bunch of the details out. But I was working with a relatively high-tech entity in Orlando, and they couldn't hire anybody coming out of all these schools that were teaching this particular skill. If I mention it, it'll give it away. But they couldn't hire anybody out of the school. The kids had paid for the classes, took the classes, passed the classes, but could not actually functionally do the job. And it was an ongoing frustrating problem for the guy who owned this contractor, this big company. And he was complaining to me one day about it, and we were talking about the old days and the old guys and the dinosaurs and the blah, blah, blah. And I called up what's called the White Shirt Club, the old IBM employees
Yeah, exactly.
who, white shirt was the thing. There's not a one of these guys under 70. And they have social clubs because they all work together. They all know each other.
They have lots of money.
And they all sit around and they go to lunch and they golf and they talk about whatever they talk about. And their wives are all happy for them to get the hell out the house and go away.
Exactly.
Because they're sitting around underfoot. Go play with your friends, right? Called up one of the white shirt clubs and said, hey, you guys want some part-time work? There were 16 of them. They were all so bored. They
Ready to
took
go.
3 jobs, divided the work up among themselves, divided the work among the 16 of them. They drove from essentially Kennedy at Canaveral to Orlando 3 days a week in a carpool, like who's going tomorrow? Hey, Gabe, it's your turn. It's Eddie's turn on Thursday, whatever.
Yeah.
They would drive to Orlando. They would show up. They would do the work in half the time, perfect every time, and leave. And they're 70. One of the guys was 82.
Now, if he had
And
applied
had
for
a-
that
and
job,
had
he
a
would not have
walker.
gotten that job.
Right? Yeah, they would never have gotten that job.
No.
And it was a lark to me to say maybe these guys could come in and mentor the kids and the blah, blah, blah. No, they did the job. And one of the guys literally had one of those walkers,
Oh,
like
yeah.
a Saturday Night Live gag with one of the guys dressed up like an old guy with a walker. And he would do that walker, go over there. We had to get a special chair for him, so a standing chair so he could sit at the server rack and do. But it was great. But you can't rely, because they have a work ethic, to get the job done right the first time. You can't teach that. But they're dying off. They're dinosaurs,
Yeah.
man. They're, we got to get this work ethic
So that-
ingrained in the young people, because it's not the education, it's the work ethic.
Right, it's the work ethic, and I had a guest on my show, my show that's on In Touch News Radio, an online station, and when I was on with this person, they said the one thing that we have to figure out how to get into people is work ethic. How do you get that in there? Because the lack of work ethic and it's not technology's fault, and it's not, people like to blame it on a whole bunch of other stuff.
Raising
It
quality.
is. I think it is a cultural and a community effort, and I believe our disbanded communities. We used to have the extended families and all of this, and because we've moved around, because I'm a bit of a gypsy myself, originally from New York, I've been as far out west as Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it's been challenging. It was challenging raising my children away from the core values of my own family. So figuring out how to get this work ethic thing going, but getting a respect going between employers and employees. Everybody's mad at the millennials because work to them looks like pushing a button, and work to us look like sweating our body parts off. And it's just different. And if we can, I think the word is respect. Learn to respect each other's
And
perspectives.
that is a home raising quality. I don't know if any of you remember whenever you talk back to your mom one time or the first time, and that should have been it.
Well, I think the respect problem is on both ends, because I have more managers and people talking about, these millennials don't want to do nothing. No, they don't want to work the same way you did. And so we've got to figure out where the bridge is. Instead of building walls, trying to keep folks out, we've got to figure out how to build bridges. But, that's a whole nother show.
So that's Margaret DeBellotte.
Yes, Ms. D, the job coach.
Miss D, the job coach.
That can be found how?
That can be found how, real quick?
You can find me at MSD, the job coach, on all social media, or call me on the phone, 704-277-8714.
There you go. So this is Porch Talk Radio on WTMP, 1150 AM, 97.5 FM. I'm Tim Horton, the executive producer of the radio show all these years, the voice you never hear. Eddie Adams is away this week at a family funeral. Willie Lawson's traveling. So Gabriel, Phillips, and I are here pretending like we're in charge.
Absolutely.
And you know what we have to do?
Oh, the wives aren't present, so we're in charge.
We have to do your favorite, Willie's favorite, everybody's favorite segment.
Before you do that, I want to thank you for allowing me to be sitting at your table here on the porch. I appreciate it. I really, really do.
Well, no, this is fun. Margaret and I have known each other for a while, and this is not the first radio interview we've done together.
I think she's a very patient lady sitting across me watching my Make America Great Again cap.
Yeah, well.
And she just grinned and bearing it.
There you go.
Thank you.
Do the best you can.
Well, you're very welcome.
Okay, so we
That's that
really
respect
quickly
thing I was
have to
talking
do this day in history.
This day. Come on, hit it.
Because Eddie's not here doesn't mean
Yeah,
we're
you
going to
got to
skip
get
it.
that tradition going.
And so we have to start with the big thing.
The big thing.
The big thing that happened on May the 23rd of 1977 was, don't cheat, don't look at your phone,
They discovered bread?
Star Wars
Oh, that's what I meant.
came out this weekend in 1977. In 1979, here's an obscure one, but this is one of those cultural
79.
things. In 1979, 6-year-old Eaton Paz of Brooklyn, New York,
Neighbor of mine.
was a little boy who disappeared. Do you know why he is noted in history?
Has. I give up.
He's the first kid that was pictured on the milk cartons, which they don't do anymore.
Yeah.
But we all know the story of picture of the missing child on the milk carton. So Eaton Paz was the first boy, and the story gets very sad from there, so we're going to skip it.
Wow.
On this day in history in 1787, the Constitutional Convention started. Some guys you might have heard of, Georgie, James Madison, Benny Franklin, those guys, another Mr. Adams, all got together in Philadelphia and figured out this thing we call U.S. Constitution.
This kept us alive and going for, what, 236 years?
Exactly.
Okay.
This day in history, 1935, was the day Babe Ruth hit what turned out to be his last home run. He didn't know that was his last home run when he did it, but turns out that was it. Tomorrow in history, 1897, was the day that a book was published by a guy named Bram Stoker that turned into vampire. All the vampire lore came from a book that he wrote in 1897. 1864, Montana became a territory. And today in history is the last day that the very last Model Ford was produced.
And that brought to us the 8 to 5 Monday through Friday work schedule that wasn't around before.
Factory
That's right.
jobs.
And do you remember what color that all the Fords were initially?
They were
Black.
all Ferrari yellow, right?
Yeah, no. So they were all black. Period. And that was you. So you either got black,
Or black.
or
Or
the
black
freshest
on
painted black.
Exactly. And so Henry Ford and his son Edsel drove the 15 millionth Model T off of the assembly line on this day in history.
Wow.
And on Monday, on this day in history, the Golden Gate Bridge opened, and Mark Donohue in 1972 set a lap record at the Indianapolis 500 with the top speed of 163.6 miles an hour.
Well, that's how
day.
fast I drove here this morning. I don't know what's
My
up
Ultima
with
can
that
do
guy.
that now.
And during the race tomorrow, they will average a speed at 230.
Wow.
So there you go. That's Porch Talk Radio for this week. Glad you tuned in. Eddie will be back next week along with Willie. Gabriel will be here, and I will go back to being the anonymous, invisible person that I am. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week
God
on
bless
Porch
America.
Talk Radio.
For the Heritage Station, WTMP